more you get to scale, the more streamlined you can make things, because now you have the ability to add above store G&A. And what that allows you to do now is kind of begin working on the business more than in the business. And I think that's really what, really helps, whether it's, the actual franchisee who's looking to grow, and for the brand as well, because, as they continue to build out their infrastructure and have more boots on the ground, whether it's multi-unit managers, whether it's they're getting large enough to bring on a development person in-house, right? Whether they're getting large enough to bring a marketing person, it actually allows us to work even more, I'd say, hand in hand, because now there's a dedicated resource that we can work with in terms of development that doesn't have to take the actual ops person or the franchisee themselves away from making sure the existing business is running at top notch in that. So for me, I think in most brands, the bigger scale you get to, the I don't want to say the easiest, but it allows you to actually build out the functions and, put the right people in place who are the subject matter experts to help make it a more efficient scaling process.
Welcome to the Art of Franchise Marketing. Each episode takes a deep dive into the franchise space and explores how the biggest and best brands handle national branding, franchise development, employee recruitment, and localized marketing on a daily basis. This podcast is brought to you by NetSertive, a localized digital marketing partner for franchise networks. NetSertive's Madeline Park talks shop with franchise executives to discuss what's working, what's not, and answers the question, what else can you be doing to excel at the art of franchise marketing?
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Art of Franchise Marketing. Today, super excited. It's our second time guest. So we've got Jonathan Massey on, who's previously with Yum Brands and Pizza Hut, and currently now has made the move over to Wingstop. Jonathan, thank you for joining. For people who might not have listened to the first episode, I think that was like a couple years ago. Give us kind of a little background into who you are and your experience in franchising.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. No, it's cool. It's a cool distinction to be the second time guest. So I'm guessing the first one went fairly well. So
Yes, it did.
Man, my name is Jonathan Massey. I'm the director of franchise development for Wingstop. I've been in really this space my entire career. Started out under the RBI umbrella with Burger King. Spent some time in training, franchise ops, field marketing, company ops. Spent time with Krispy Kreme. Took a little bit of a pivot. Worked with a data analytics company for about a year and a half, and then switched back into this industry with Yum Brands under the Pizza Hut umbrella in franchise development, franchise recruiting, led our non-traditional business as well for a while, and then most recently, about a little over a year ago, joined Wingstop as well, leading franchise growth for the eastern part of the country, new franchisees and our existing ones.
So how do you think, well, first of all, I love that you are Mr. QSR. Like you tried to get out and you're like, I'm going back, and I'm going back epically, and I'm going back pizza. Like, so how do you think your experience in different types of quick service restaurants, and also, your stint in data and ops and all of that, has played into your ability to succeed as someone in franchise development? Because I think a lot of times people assume, franchise development, as long as you're a good salesperson, you'll be fine. And that's just simply not the truth. Not only because these brands are enormous and we're asking people for an investment of their lifetime, but also, it's not just a corporate transaction. There's a lot of what Scott Abbott over at 5-Star Franchising calls, there's a lot of squishy stuff. There's a lot of emotional, a lot of coaching. So how do you think that plays into your success?
Yeah, well, I think probably first and foremost, I've been with some fantastic brands that have, years of perfecting what this looks like. And I've had some great, leaders along the way who've been great coaches and mentors as well. So I think that's been, one of the first things, when I think about what's helped me be successful. I think the other piece is really seeing it from different lenses, whether it's, publicly traded companies, whether it's private companies, whether it's, in company operations and think about how organizations think about it when they're the ones operating versus, when you're supporting franchisees. And I think a lot of that ultimately comes to giving you not only a well-rounded perspective, but also an understanding of the franchisees that you're interacting with or the potential franchisees that you're looking to bring aboard. And so I think that's really been the biggest thing. I tried to get away from sales. I found myself in like sales related roles or business development my entire career. But I realized that at the end of the day, being curious and going in different parts of the business and things of that nature really just gave me a well-rounded perspective to really be able to talk to the brands that I'm selling or you know having my existing franchisees to continue to grow out. And I realized that it's less about selling and it's more about being able to really articulate why the opportunity makes sense and then letting them come to that conclusion on their own.
Yeah, and I think that that's something, a trend we've seen with, some of the most successful, you included franchise developers in, I would say across the globe, is that one, it takes a brand who truly understands, I guess, the art of franchising to realize that you shouldn't just be placing people in seats and really pressuring them to hit these sales goals, because that's when you start bringing in the wrong types of franchisees. You're getting those people that are pushy salespeople, and that's just not what franchising is about. It truly is about connecting the right entrepreneur with the right opportunity. And so I love the idea of, I don't look at it as a sales role. I look at it as an opportunity to educate and connect. And, ultimately, when you're doing that and you have the best intentions, that's where people are more apt to be open and also take that risk with you. I wouldn't want to take a risk with a sketchy salesperson with
No,
my
as well you shouldn't.
401k for sure.
As well you shouldn't.
And I say all the time, I was like, I for sure am not a salesperson, but I think that the best people in franchising have that art of sales to them, because when it comes down to it, like, I'll give away anything for free. Like, it freaks me out when people are like, how much does this cost? I'm like, oh no, it's free. But outside of that, I think it's really understanding that, franchising puts food on the table for my kids, and I will never put someone in a position, corporate or franchisee, that could potentially risk that. And so, really, I think people underestimate how much franchise developers truly care about their candidates. They're not looking at the commission, they're not looking at, I have to meet these goals by, a certain date. They're looking at what is the lifelong success of this contract, because this isn't you purchase it and you can return it. Many times it's a decade long
Yep.
commitment.
Yep.
So, talk to me about, I mentioned in the beginning, having a franchisor that understands franchising in terms of growth goals, the life cycle of a candidate. So talk to me about Wingstop's current strategy for franchise development. Before we hopped on live, I was talking about, I think people assume that when you're with an incredible brand such as Wingstop, they think that franchise development is easy and you just have to open the door and people come on in and people, they just get this like very shiny take on it. And, I'd love for you to walk us through what it really takes to become that shiny brand, because there's a lot of hard work and there's a lot of tough decisions that need to be made in order to even get there and also remain there.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, I think the first thing you have to do is really understand the brand, where you are and where you're trying to go, because that's going to really drive who do you bring in as franchisees, right? And who do you grow with that you already have. I think one of the best signs of any brand and what we see is that the majority by far of our new development comes from our existing, we call them brand partners, our existing brand partners. And so I think that tells the story better than we could articulate, that the brand is strong and it's a growing brand and it's one that, people are excited about, right? The people who've made the investment continue to make the investment over and over. So I think that's the first piece. I think secondly is realizing where you are in kind of your journey, right? I mean, we just hit not too long ago 2,000 restaurants, right? And so, when you think about that's a wonderful milestone, but we've stated that we think we could get to 4,000 in the U.S. over time. And so, when we think about the fact it took us 30 years roughly to get to 2000, and we say, we don't want it to take another 30 to get to 4000, how do we take, the learnings that we got from the first 2000 and all the success that we've been able to have, but also the lessons we've learned, and now how do we, craft the path forward, to the next 2000? And so, I think it's made us think about, who do we, where do we bring in new brand partners? And then when we do bring them in, where are we bringing them in? What does that profile of them look like, right? If, it took us 30 years to get to 2000, then what does that new brand partner look like that helps us get to 4,000 in a significantly smaller time frame? And so I think that's really been the biggest piece of it. And then to that point, I mean, we're in a fortunate situation, and I don't want to discount the amount of hard work and the really disciplined strategy execution that's come from really creating the brand that we have and the value proposition that we're able to offer. But the thing is, we're in a great position to where there is a lot of interest in the brand. And we say no a lot more than yes, trust me. And so it's looking for the right people, whether it's an internal employee or a brand partner that we're going to bring on new into the system, right, that really represents the Wingstop way. And because we're bringing someone else into the community of our brand partners, who we're continuing to bring, build cohesiveness and a great relationship with, and you want to make sure that whoever you bring into that community is going to be someone that doesn't necessarily have to look like everybody else you brought in, but they need to add value while also understanding the Wingstop way and being able to live that in their, in the way that they do it.
I really love that you brought up that, they need to be able to fit into the community of owners. I think a lot of times we hear when talking about franchise development candidates is, they have to be a right fit for their brand. And being a right fit for their brand can also be very different from the brand community. So definitely taking into account not only the culture that you might put on a poster, but the culture that's internally, because, you think about, say you have a dog pack and you bring in a dog that's just not going to jive with the rest of them. Like, the whole house is going to be chaos. People are going to get bit. Like, it's just not, not good.
Right.
You can't have someone that's going to come in, especially if you've already have a footprint of 2,000 stores. You put someone right in the middle of that and they start to get territorial, and that's going to really create waves. So not only making sure that they're coachable within the franchise corporate side, but also with your other brand partners. Now, obviously, with 2,000 stores open, it's a lot easier to say, I want to coach 1,000 franchisees on their 2,000 stores rather than 2,000 franchisees. Not that there's too many cooks in the kitchen, but ultimately you would love your franchisees to expand, their current market or their current location. So at what level does Wingstop put the focus more on territory expansion and location expansion with your current franchisees versus bringing in that new blood, or is it like a 50-50?
Yeah, I mean, kind of to the point we had earlier, the majority of our new store development, by and large, comes from our existing brand partners. So, we see it as important that the people who, are already in the brand, representing the brand, made the investment to continue to help us build out the brand, are the ones that have the opportunity to continue to grow. And so, obviously we're like, pretty much any other brand, we have our top 25 markets that we want to make sure that we're fully penetrating, and that on our path to 4,000, right, that'll be most markets will look to continue to grow and build them out to their potential. And we see the majority of that by and large with existing brand partners. We think we have a great group of them that, represent the brand well, who, really, really love the brand and, do a great job of that. And so we'll be selective and we'll be strategic in certain areas where we bring in new brand partners where it's necessary, where, maybe, we don't have an ideal existing brand partner to go into that area, but there's enough white space where it makes sense. So we'll do that strategically. But I'd say by and large, I mean by and large, all of our new restaurant development will come from, does now and will continue to come from our existing brand partners.
So, what does that look like when you say you've got franchisee A and they said they've got a really great existing store? They said, "All right, Massey, let's do this. Like, let's open store number 2 or number 3." What does that process look like for you guys? Because now you've taken a lot of the education, nurturing, initial conversations out of your job, but instead it's, what does that look like when someone says yes, on in terms of the franchise development and then getting them to the operations person?
Yeah, I think well for us it's a very collaborative process. I mean, so we'll spend time not only you know in sale with myself in sales. We'll connect with our real estate managers. We'll also connect with our ops team, the RVP, RBD, franchise business consultant, to really get perspective on whether all of this makes sense. And so typically it's a yes, and then we'll have kind of a collaborative call where we get all of the relevant parties together, and then from there we end up doing site tours and really understanding the market, the area, the actual site in and of itself. Does it make sense? And then from there it's kind of a handoff where real estate now is helping them find the sites. From there it passes off to construction, kind of parallel path, and that ops is building the relationships, getting them, if it's a new brand partner, getting them ready for training, and things of that nature. But it's kind of a gradual handoff from sales to real estate to construction to ops.
Now, the $1 million question, I wonder, and I get the sense, and I don't think it's just a sense, but you guys have an incredible team of support. It sounds like you've got someone helping them out every step of the way,
One of
whether
the
they've
best in
been
the
in the
business, in
system.
my opinion. I
Yeah,
may be
whether
biased, but I think it's one of the best in the business.
right. And so I'll be a little transparent here is, we have 4 brands, certainly not at the size of Wingstop, but we've got 4. I personally have 4 brands. And I found that every time we bring on a brand, they always say, you have to understand franchising, you understand the brand, you've got to do the guerrilla marketing. I get all of that, but as I add more brands, there's just less time to go around. And it's unrealistic to say, I've brought in a new brand, I now have to ignore everything and just focus on the baby. Because, I've got 3 other kids over here going, okay, I'm hungry, what's up? So, how do you coach and educate and sell around that where a franchisee might be a little nervous in terms of expanding their territory because they've got a great thing going, and then all of a sudden they're like, do I have to start this all over again? Or is there within your brand, is it really more streamlined, the more locations you bring on?
I think that's probably the case in most brands. The more you get to scale, the more streamlined you can make things, because now you have the ability to add above store G&A. And what that allows you to do now is kind of begin working on the business more than in the business. And I think that's really what really helps, whether it's the actual franchisee who's looking to grow, and for the brand as well, because as they continue to build out their infrastructure and have more boots on the ground, whether it's multi-unit managers, whether it's they're getting large enough to bring on a development person in-house, right? Whether they're getting large enough to bring a marketing person, it actually allows us to work even more, I'd say, hand in hand, because now there's a dedicated resource that we can work with in terms of development that doesn't have to take the actual ops person or the franchisee themselves away from making sure the existing business is running at top notch in that. So for me, I think in most brands, the bigger scale you get to, the I don't want to say the easiest, but it allows you to actually build out the functions and put the right people in place who are the subject matter experts to help make it a more efficient scaling process.
So you're telling me I scaled too fast? No, I'm just kidding.
I don't know. Maybe it's diversified too fast.
Yeah, honestly, I do I don't think anything through, let's be real. So I tell my kids all the time, my family, no more kids, no more brands, and I always end up with one more, and it's just, they're like, Maddie, how do you do it? I was like, my life is chaos. I don't know what to tell you. So And you say subject matter expert, and I'm about to go to my local franchisee and be like, if you need a wing expert, I got you. Because I was telling you before, like I think we have Wingstop minimum once a week here. Like I
Yes,
told you, we are just living in chaos and wings for days.
I
That's
love
just
it.
what we do.
I love
So
it. Love it.
on that, obviously it's in your name. How do you guys make sure, from the top level down, from you guys all the way down to your operations partner, that you guys are continuing to evolve? I think a lot of what makes franchising go nuts these days is different modalities, adding products and services. So where do you guys stand on that? Because it's similar to mosquito and tick in that that's in the name. So it's not
Mhm.
like Wingstop can go out and be like, we just made the best buffalo cake you've ever seen. Like, so where do you guys land on that when your franchisees might be, saying, well, how do we compete? What's next? Because QSR, man, that is the most competitive space you can be in.
Yeah, it is. It is. I think for us, we found what works, right? And so, what we try to avoid is overcomplicating things, right? The fact that we have wings, we have boneless wings, we have sandwiches, we have tenders. I mean, that's fries, and that's really it. I think where we're able to continue to diversify is in flavor. And so that's where we really lean in our innovation is in flavor and sauces and rubs and things of that nature that allow us to be creative. But it also allows us to be versatile as well. So any flavor that you can get your wings or tenders in, you can also get the sandwich in, right? And so we've been able to create 12 chicken sandwiches without any more complexity than actually just adding the actual sandwich itself because all of the flavors are already in the store. And so, we lean on flavor versus trying to overcomplicate menu.
I love that. So I was talking to CEO of Uno's Pizzeria the other day, and I said, because they're going international, and I'm like, how much do you have to flex your brand and offerings when you go international? Because there's a lot of culture differences. And he said, a lot of times it's less about the product, but more about what you're putting on the product. So if
Hmm.
we're in Peru, it's probably not going to be, pepperoni and cheese. It's going to be whatever they have
Hmm.
locally.
Hmm.
It's guinea pig meat. I'm not saying Uno's putting guinea pig on their pizzas, but that's, I was in Peru and I had a guinea pig. So that's my example there. But, it's very similar to what you're saying is it's less about changing the staple and more about flexing and being innovative within that vertical, which I think is
Hmm.
super important to note. And a lot of brands are probably taking notes now because it doesn't have to be extreme. It can
Hmm.
be small pivots that make, all the difference. So
Absolutely.
I'm going to ask the $1 million question, and you don't have to be specific, but people probably are wondering that when you guys do decide in a market that you want to bring on new partners, where are you getting your leads from? Are you talking to brokers? Is it all organic? Is it
All of the
Jonathan
above.
Massey's families who are like, it's my turn to open one?
It's all of the above. It's all of the above. I mean, you can never really be you can't have too many lead sources. I think the
Hmm.
bigger piece is understanding who you're looking for more than anything. But it's all of the above. I mean, we take the online applications and inquiries. We look at those. We go to the trade shows. We get leads from existing brand partners who, are in other brands who, are telling the people in their other brands that hey, this is a fantastic brand to join. I mean, it's everywhere. You can't have too many sources. It's really understanding who it is that you're looking for and being very disciplined in selecting, the people who fit that.
And how much do you think, because Wingstop does incredible brand awareness campaigns, I think that there's a big stigma that if a brand uses the brand fund and runs a Super Bowl ad or runs a CTV ad, it's always for consumer. But how much do you think that plays into franchise development? Like, do you hear your current owners and your new owners saying, like, oh, I really liked that ad, or I saw, the campaign Wingstop did with the Olympics, or whatever it may be?
Well, I think our existing brand partners, I mean, they currently, they love it because they see the impact that it has on their business, right? And how we've continued to grow our top line sales and continue to have a great value proposition from a four-wall economic standpoint. And so they see it from that perspective, and they realize if they keep having the performance that we're having, that it makes sense to continue to grow and scale. But I think, when you think about potential new brand partners that we're bringing in, I mean, they are consumers before they become a part of the brand. And so I think it does help in that regard.
I am literally writing that down because that's such a good way to say it. Because a lot of times brand dev says, "Well, I don't want to spend on brand awareness. It's only for consumer." But you're completely right. They are our consumers before they're development candidates.
Exactly,
So
exactly.
you got to make sure you get in front of them there. So I have, we're coming up on time, but I have a couple of big questions. My last one in terms of, kind of deep inside the brand, and I was just wondering this the other day. There was a chicken shortage, not too long ago. Did you guys feel that on your supply and demand side, or was that just like a lot of smoke and mirrors of people running out of chicken tenders?
No, no. I mean, it was real. I mean, everybody. There was a point where you saw everybody getting into wings for a while, and so it definitely did, drive a shortage, and we saw, the impacts of that in supply, in pricing, and things of that nature. I mean, it's smoothed out now, and we are doing very well from that. But we did feel it. We felt it just like everybody else did. It was
Yeah.
not smoke and mirrors at all.
It's important to say that because I
I would have
think,
loved for it to have been, but it wasn't.
yeah, a lot of times people think, oh, these big brands, they're immune to it, but it really is the support around it and how you guys can handle that internally. And it was, it's clearly not at the scale of the pandemic, but it's something that, people might not think about that. If I'm in wings and there's a chicken shortage, now what? But you can say,
Exactly.
we've been through it and we
Exactly.
figured it out.
Exactly.
So, John, what's next for Wingstop? Aside from the path to 4,000, where do you see Wingstop going in the next 5 to 10 years?
That's interesting. I mean, I think we're still defining what that looks like today. I mean, I think, the things that we've stated is, hey, we think, we can get to 4,000 in the U.S. We want to be a top 10 global brand. Those are the things that we're really focused on. And I think it's really charting the path that gets us there. And so as we've stated that goal, and we're working towards it, it's now creating the different aspects and executing on them to get there. I don't that's really it, right? It's that has a lot in and of itself when you really think about it. And so it's the work in the background that we're really focused on. Is keeping the momentum that we have and continuing to improve that, and finding the existing levers that we're pulling, and continuing to maximize them, but finding out what are those small tweaks that we can make that have big impact without really throwing away who we are and trying to be something different that we're not. It's staying the course, but finding a way to really have an impact and innovate within who we are.
And I like that it's, you guys have this goal and you are fully dedicated to the goal. I think a lot of brands say, I'm going to be in the Forbes 500, I'm going to be whatever it is. And then they kind of go about their daily business. But what it sounds like for you guys is you have a goal and you are going to functionally not only create the steps, but create the whole house around it so that it not only is a dream, but it really becomes a reality for people coming in and out of the brand. If you had a piece of advice to give to someone who, whether it's a candidate or, a corporate employee who wants to get into big brand franchising, wants to get into QSR, what would your advice be?
That's a broad that's
How
a
do you
broad
succeed?
range.
How do you succeed at the top of the QSR pinnacle?
I don't know. I don't know that I have that answer. I'll say what has helped me have some success. I would say really is believing in the brand that you're representing, right? Whether that's a franchisee, whether that's an employee of the brand. I mean, it's really believing in that brand, because it drives the way you make decisions. And when you believe in it, then you're curious about what makes it go, right? And the more you learn, the more you understand what makes it go, the more you can put the pieces together and see the bigger picture. And then I think from there, it's really understanding the bigger picture, right? Because certain things, certain decisions can make sense in a vacuum given the circumstances that you're in at that time. but it could also not make sense in the grand scheme of things of what you're trying to accomplish. So I think the third thing would be really understanding the bigger picture and the why of it all, so that the decisions you make ladder up to that.
I love that. You know, but your level of believing and passion about the brand is going to drive, you know, different decisions, and I think that that's a great way to put it. You know, John, thank you so much for coming on. My final question, and it is the hardest one. What is your favorite wing flavor?
Ooh, you know,
Ooh,
all of them are great. So that's the toughest piece.
it's
Uh,
why I asked. They're all good.
so if you make me if you make me pick one, I would say it's Louisiana rub. But
Okay.
I've really been leaning on the spicy Korean Q. So
I knew
it's a
we
good
were
honorable mention.
birds of a feather. I love it. Well, everyone listening, thank you so much for tuning in. You can connect with Jonathan Massey on LinkedIn and, of course, check out a Wingstop near you. If you have any questions about franchise development, feel free to contact myself, and I'll put you in touch with Mr. Massey, or, of course, you can go right to him. But either way, thanks for tuning into the Art of Franchise Marketing. And, Jonathan, we will see you soon.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to The Art of Franchise Marketing. This show is brought to you by NetCertive. We help franchise brands and multi-location businesses run localized digital marketing at scale. To learn more, visit netcertive.com.